Because somebody, we got media watching, all right? Good evening, guys, and welcome to another episode. Welcome back, Duncan. And Duncan is from Active Listening Therapies, and he's one of our major sponsors too. And it's nice to have you back, Duncan.
Yeah, it's great. Doesn't seem 2 weeks, actually. We had a week off last week, but it soon comes around, doesn't it?
Yeah. It was all right for me because I had to catch up with some stuff too, and I've been having some good news too. So I've been sorry about my phone at the moment. It's going crazy. Always does. We're going to turn the phone off now. I've been like made ambassador for a charity, and
Wow, it's fantastic.
I've been offered a place on the Elsin Ombudsman's panel, and all sorts of things going on with me at the moment. So
Exciting stuff.
yeah, it's exciting stuff. Can't believe it after
Good.
all that I've been through. Anyway, you're back to school now, are you?
Yeah, so this week was, actual fact, last week was the first full week that we've done back in schools. And my gosh, if we thought it was busy and we thought how busy it was going to be, let's times it by 10 because it's absolutely manic. And that's a good thing. It's very easy to say, oh my God, lots of children are struggling in schools. And, you know, uh, that might be some people's perception. But what's really interesting is kids are coming forward and saying, I am identifying the fact that I'm struggling with my mental health and my emotions. So can I talk about it? So we have our usual time within schools. And obviously, as you know, I can only work a certain number of hours per week to make sure that we're ethically in the right position we are. But it just feels like we're talking to an awful lot of people. So whilst we are doing our regular counselling work, what we've also been doing is doing sort of drop-in sessions. This week we've been working with sixth formers, and as you can probably imagine, they're a little bit older and they're quite in touch with their sort of emotions. A lot of them looking back, feeling really quite angry about the position they're in. As we've said before, I thought people would look back and go, wow, I didn't have to do my exams last year. But actually, they're really feeling passionate about it. And we could take this, one of two ways. We could say, well, it's really, really bad that they're feeling like that. But actually, it's making them focus. It's making them work hard. So from the sixth formers that we've been working with this week, that's been really good. So workshops with them. What we're finding with I say what I'm finding, I can't talk for my colleagues, is the younger kids are really talking about their emotions as well. And that's fantastic. So if anything has changed within a year, yes, there are lots of people saying, mental health is at the forefront of people's minds right now. It is, and it is for the right reasons. And maybe, just maybe, had the lockdown and the situation not happened, I wonder whether right here, right now, in March 2021, people would be in touch with their personal feelings and their emotional health as much as they actually are. So it's really easy to say lots of people are struggling, but actually people are coming forward and wanting to talk, and it's positive that people are wanting to talk. So
Are there a full is it the full quota of children at school now? Or are they dropping as flies?
I don't know exact numbers. I can talk about the schools I work in, and I can also talk about the school that my son goes to. So, from a parent perspective, my understanding is a significant proportion of the cohort, I believe over 50% of the junior school that my son goes to has been sent home. Now, where we are, the junior schools have another week to go before the Easter holidays. So, for working parents who have just got back into it, this poses issues for them, but also the kids have just got their heads round going back, and it might be worth talking more about this um, in a moment, and they're kind of struggling with that, certainly with the academy school and the academy trust that I'm working with. At one particular school, out of about, I believe, 1,000, um, over 150 have been sent home this week. So, there's some ethical questions there about whether or not kids should have gone back. Um, you know, my personal view, and this is my personal view as a parent, I would have preferred my child to go back after Easter. Um, I want to talk about um, the kids who, and it's actually the younger kids who had quite a lot of anxiety in going back to school. So if we can imagine the middle of December, the kids break up, they're having 2 weeks off, in some cases 3 weeks in some schools over Christmas. They then build themselves up to come back. The first week in January, they found out they weren't coming back. So, you know, they had built up this level of anxiety and worry and stress over what life was going to be like going back into school.
Is that because of the dangers that they might get the COVID?
Uh, I, I think there's a multitude of things to think about, and in January, they were the anxiousness was as much about things still being new. So some of them realistically had only spent 12 weeks in school, with a couple of half terms. So everything was still new. And then all of a sudden, it got taken away from them, and they didn't know how long it was going to be. So they didn't know how long it was going to be. First point. Second point, they then had to manage their own time, which for younger children, and I'm talking years 7, 8, 9, so year 7 being 11 years old, they're having to manage their own school time for probably the first time. So there's a level of responsibility there where they had to log on, um, uh, working from home. So there's a difficult prospect for them when their home is all of a sudden a work environment. Um, so that's confusing. And then, as I say, for the school that I work in, or schools that I work in, it was over 10 weeks before they went back. So unsurprisingly, the kids were getting stressed and anxious about what it was going to be like because they've forgotten what life was like at school. So understandably, a lot of children got very, very anxious on the run up to coming back, not only for the fact that the timetable was being changed, the pressure of the lessons was going to change, the unknown of the workload was going to change, but also we're now asking kids to test sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. And these tests, whilst are not hugely, I say they're not hugely intrusive. For an 11-year-old, they can be quite scary. As we know, it involves putting a big, swab into your tonsils. It involves putting like a Q-tip, a stick, and a cotton bud up your nose. And if you're having to do that several times a week, there's going to be anxiety there. But furthermore, you're having to do that, in a hall where there's probably 50 other children. That's embarrassing as well. So there's anxiety there. Then there's anxiety over, what's my test result going to be? What do friends think? Am I going to look silly doing this test? There's all sorts of things happening. And then here we are 2 weeks after going back, and children are now faced with isolation because children, for whatever reason, are bringing the virus, the infection back into school. And I would imagine it only takes a small percentage of children, bearing in mind 30 people in a class. Some classes are then mixed, and then there's communal areas of 200 or 300 people, and then outdoors there's upwards of 600-700 people. Is it any wonder that one or two cases turn into upwards of 150 people being sent home barely a week or 2 weeks after they've just got their head round them going back to school? So is it any
How's the
wonder
teachers?
kids are, you
Sorry,
know,
how is the teachers coping with this?
that's really interesting because the teachers, again, have, I was going to say they've only been back in school 2.5, 3 weeks. That's not true. Of course, they've been in school, they've been teaching. I say back in their normal role with the kids, but let me tell you, they are exhausted. The when you walk around the communal areas and the corridors of school, it feels, I wouldn't say stressful, but it feels intense. It feels like almost like an anxious environment, and people are exhausted. You can tell that. You can see it in their faces. And actually, I say in their faces, actually, you can tell it in their eyes, because the schools that I'm working in, it's 100% mask on everywhere, all the time. So kids are wearing their masks from the moment they get into school, through their lessons, through their lunch periods, obviously to take them off to eat and drink. So that's stressful. Masks
Yeah,
on,
yeah, yeah.
arguably for the right reason. So they've got themselves into this notion of, we've been working over how far you've come since Christmas, the things you've achieved, you've gotten over coming back to school, and then here we are today, for many people, the last day of term. So everything they've just gotten their head round has stopped. And this week I've been working on planning ahead. And I'm not a big believer of kids planning ahead, or adults. That
Well, we don't know
for
what's
that
going to
much,
happen,
we
do
don't
we?
know
So,
what's going to happen. Exactly, Steve.
yeah.
So, but putting themselves in a position where they're comfortable about coming back to school because they've overcome the objections of the things that was holding them back a few weeks ago, and that's gonna weigh heavy on many young people's minds. And for others, for the older children, for the year 11s, they've got 7 weeks left before the end of for many of them, the end of their school career. Obviously, some of them will come back and do sixth form. So a lot of young people, year 11s again, just like the cohort from last year, feeling like they've been cheated out of out of a positive result. And it's not the fact that they're hugely bothered about doing the exam or not doing the exam. It's the fact that from year 9, it becomes the top of a triangle. And, this is so important that it almost feels like the top of the mountain's been chopped off. So purpose has been lost. And purpose, we've spoken about before, is the thing that keeps people going. So there's one or two people who are going, well, actually, if I've got 95% of my marks now, actually, what's the point of me coming back for the last 7 weeks?
Duncan,
Difficult.
What I want to do is, it's okay that we go to that you're doing a fantastic job, and congratulations on that. But I want to know about you. How are you coping through these? Because you're dealing with all these children. You're going to sometimes with stress, and how are you coping through it all?
Do you know what? Tonight, I came home and I actually felt top of the world. I really did, because it is 100 miles an hour. And when it's 100 miles an hour, I know good work is happening. I can imagine the satisfaction that nurses get, for example, or firefighters get, or it's that purpose, what we were saying. And yes, am I exhausted? Yeah, I am. But self-care is really important. And I'm making sure that I'm going to bed earlier. I'm making sure that some of my routines are different. I've changed what I eat. So I no longer eat breakfast, which is carb based. So any breads or grains or anything like that, because I'm finding it's weighing me down. And by the time I get to 10:30, the point where it's almost break time, and I can have children coming knocking on my door, asking to see me, or asking how they get put on the list to see me. I'm finding that I was getting heavy. So I've changed some of the things that I'm doing. That's me listening to my body. So I've
Yeah.
changed to
That's all good. That's all good, Duncan. But the trouble is about your body and about the eating patterns. But what I want to get into is into your mind, your mental health, because
yeah.
mental health can be damaging.
Yeah, it can. I have to make sure that I'm in the correct ethical position to work with people. And the first thing that makes that happen is good sleep. The second thing that makes that happen is good nutrition. Without those, I'm no use to anybody, really. If I haven't had a good night's sleep or some decent food, Duncan gets grumpy. All right, so I have to make sure that's sorted. If they're in place, I can manage my mental health. I'm 5 years into my career. I've done thousands of hours of working with young people and adults, and I've learnt. I have learnt to shut the door behind me. And at the start of my career, that used to be hard work. Particularly, I used to remember, and I think I've said this to you before, on a Friday night, I would find that I would come home and my clothes would be wet through perspiration, because I was working really hard to get through to the end of the week. And that comes down to pace. And as I mature in my career, as I become more resilient, more experienced, I learn to deal with it. How do surgeons deal with walking away from an operation? How do police officers deal with breaking bad news to families after an incident? I don't know, but that's kind of what I liken it to. An experience has helped me to shut the door, come home and enjoy family time, embrace my son, embrace, my family, walk the dog, get some fresh air. I have to say, the past week, the sun's come out. It's been beautiful. It's still been cold, but just that little bit of sun on my skin and that little bit of extra light has really, really helped me. I know that the clocks changing this week will make a massive difference to my mental health. Lighter nights really, really help me. And I do, at the opposite end of the year, in October, I do fear the autumnal months and the winter months, because you go to work in the dark and you come home in the dark, and
Yeah.
that's a struggle. So there are things happening, nature wise, that make me feel good. I am looking forward, whilst the schools are, or the schools that I'm working at are off next week, we are still seeing clients. We're seeing clients remotely. But I will have a little bit more time to myself. And I know that next weekend I won't be working. I will give myself some extra time. I might even have some some Easter chocolate and happy days. It is hard, but actually I do. It's going to sound really odd. But this week I've really thrived on how busy it has been, because I know good therapeutic work is taking place. I know, whilst people are knocking on my door and saying, "Sir, how do I get booked in?" That's positive. That's, as I say to everybody that walks through the door and says, "I have a problem," I say, the journey won't be as hard as it will be or will have been for you to pluck up the courage to knock on the door.
So, as a counsellor, and you've got your own business and you've been doing quite well. If people want to kind of like are seeking counselling, what can you actually offer them?
Me personally, or what's available nationally to people?
Well, no, you personally,
Me
your
personally.
business, your
Okay.
business.
So our business has changed over the last 2 years. We started off working with the intent to work with adults and businesses, and we still do that to a small extent. The demand right now for us, and we have become a specialist counselling service, albeit I never thought of it like that, but this is what our customers are telling us, for young people. Now, with that comes young people counselling, which is one-to-one talking therapy. Okay, so psychotherapeutic, working with emotions and feelings. That might be with talking about things that have happened in the past: grief and loss, abuse, sexual identity, COVID, whatever is weighing somebody down. We offer 50-minute sessions. So that's the mainstay of what we do. What we're finding is there is a gap between how young people are viewing life and how their parents are viewing life. So we are providing mediation between children and their parents also. And sometimes that can be a real eye-opening experience for the parents, because they might have a notion of what their children might be thinking, and it might be completely wrong. And that comes as a difficulty to some parents. And then we end up having to sort of not take away the emphasis from the children, but we have to be very careful that the parents don't go away and get themselves into a position that they can't cope with. There is this misconception at the moment with children that they're on the phone all the time, and that this is not the case. I am full in my caseload at schools at the moment, and all the kids are telling me that they no longer talk to their friends either on video call or text or on the phone as much as they used to. Yet parents just have this de facto reset that they think kids are on the phone all the time, and it's not the case. Why? Because kids haven't got anything to say to kids right now. Everything's been said. They don't know what to say. So actually, quite a lot of the difficulties I'm having with young people is I feel lost. I don't know what to say to my friends. There's apathy, there's disassociation, which parents just think, oh, my kids are on the phone. And when parents are saying to their children, oh, you're on your phone all the time, it's not the case, and children are getting upset by their parents thinking that's the case. So that's a really good example of the kind of mediation that we're doing with children and adults. Obviously, if adults want to come and see us as well, we still work with adults. Aside from the core therapeutic offer, we do meditation. I wouldn't do meditation with a younger person, so it wouldn't be suitable for
Do you think that
somebody.
would work, though, Dunk?
Not on a young person, no. I have done some meditation with some older, sixth formers, 12 and 13, year 12 and year 13, so 17, 18-year-olds, and we work on anxieties and sort of guided thinking, whereby I work off a bit of a script, as it were, and we work on techniques of gathering the things that are bothering people. So, for instance, in a very simplistic term, I encourage people to think about what their worries are. We imagine walking in a field that we're familiar with, so it's a nice area to be in. It might be a warm beach, and I encourage people to mentally write down what their issues are on a luggage tag, and tie that luggage tag to a balloon and let the balloon go. And as the balloon lifts, and of course all this is in our mind. All of this is symbolic, but it's about letting our anxiety go. And when older young people are starting to become more aware of themselves and need something a little bit different, then it can be quite a cool way of making them think. And it's a tool that I can print a script off that I've written that I can tie around a young person's circumstance that they can take with them, and they can work on it themselves.
Wow.
So no, not for young people, but
No.
for older children, I say older children, older teens that are maybe into drama or psychology or something like that, that are a little more in touch with their emotions and thoughts and processes, then it is a really good way of working. Louise is also a qualified clinical hypnotherapist. Again, we wouldn't suggest hypnotherapy for young people. We wouldn't suggest
Can you tell us why? Can
hypnotherapy.
you tell us why?
I'm not a hypnotherapist. That would be probably a good question for Louise. My understanding is it's counselling really tackles the depth of the problem. Hypnotherapy is a bit more light-hearted, is about habit, but also, how do younger people view hypnotherapy that they may have seen on the television? Hypnotherapy that you see on the television is a stage act.
Yes,
It's nothing like clinical hypnotherapy that Louise offers. She doesn't put anybody to sleep. It's about conscious working. It's a bit like, actually, my understanding is it's a bit like meditation. It's a relaxation technique. It's clearing your mind. It's
So it won't be for
going
children
into
with it.
yourself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it for
No.
children. Louise wouldn't recommend it for children. But again, an 18-year-old who's aware of themselves, maybe who has already experienced some depth of counselling, then maybe that might be something that would work hand in hand, but not as a standalone therapy. So
No.
that's what we provide. I have I'm a Reiki master. That's something that I chose to do in my spare time.
Yeah, I was
It
going to
was
talk
something
to you
I'm
about that.
curious about. Yeah, it's spirituality. Again, is nothing that I would talk too deeply about in a counselling session. Spirituality is very subjective, and for younger people, it's, am I a Christian? Am I not a Christian? Do I believe in life after death or spirit or whatever? Reiki has its roots in Buddhism and is based on universal energy. There are lots of people who get it. The medical industry is starting to get their head around it. But there are some people who completely disregard it, just like there are some people who completely disregard religion, for example. What I say to people is, in its basic possible form, to understand universal energy, put your hands to let's get this right. Let's sit right. If you put your hands together like that and you start to move them forward and back, it almost feels like you've got a magnet in your hands, and that's what the energy is. The idea is that within our body we have essentially a channel of sort of canals and stations that they're called chakras, that work on different parts of the body. And the idea is, through placing your hands on certain parts of the body, it releases energy. Now, the reason I was going to say got into Reiki in the first place is I was diagnosed with ME, so chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. I've been suffering for 15 years after I had a physical breakdown, and most probably, although I wasn't diagnosed with anything, a mental breakdown. I completely exhausted myself mentally and physically, and I was taking a lot of medication, and I got to the point where I decided that I didn't want to take medication anymore. And I wanted to try something new. I wanted to see what other things were available for me. So I tried acupuncture. Now, I don't like being touched. I don't like the sensation of being touched. If somebody brushes past me, I find that particularly uncomfortable. My sensation of hot and cold is particularly off the scale. So somebody might be
So
feeling
don't you
very
like a
cold.
cuddle then?
Honestly, no, I find it very difficult, and that's something myself and my wife have kind of had to work on. Yeah, of course I want a cuddle because there's the emotional side that goes with that.
Mm.
But it's painful. It's painful. My pain receptors find that really, really difficult. So there was acupuncture that didn't work, as you can probably imagine. Um, my body was very stiff, and I was lacking in energy. And I found a Reiki therapist. Somebody said, "Have you tried Reiki?" And I said, "No." What's Reiki? They said, "Oh, it's this thing about energy healing." And I went, "Don't talk nonsense. It doesn't exist. You can't see it. You can't feel it. You can't taste it. It doesn't exist." And they said, "No, no, no, no. Come and try it." And wow, I can only talk about my own experience, but it was amazing. People talk about, how they found Christianity and found an energy and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not a practicing Christian, um, but that's almost what I can liken it to. And the fact it's come from kind of Buddhism, which in itself is a religion, um, But I didn't particularly like the experience of having hands put on me, but the outcome was after an hour's session, I felt like I'd had a really good bath. I felt clean. I felt energized. I felt refreshed. And I thought, there's something in this, and I want to try it. And the reason I want to try it even more is because I want to try it and see, A, if I can do it, but B, if I can develop myself as a hands-off Reiki therapist, whereby there must be people who don't like being touched, and I can work therapeutically without touching somebody. So
Right.
it's it's not something that is clinically based. If somebody asks me about it and says, "Can I try it?" we'll do it. I am what's known as a Reiki master, so there's certain attunements that so certain exams that you have to go through that give you different tools to be able to work on. Um, I guess in its simplest possible form, it's a relaxation technique. I practice it on myself, um, and you know, I say to anybody, if there's something you do and there is a benefit for you, then that's a good thing, surely, providing you're not
Do you?
harming yourself.
Yeah, Duncan. Do you have a belief?
I believe that's a really good question. Yeah, absolutely. Do I have a belief? Yes. Firstly, I
Why I'm
fail to
asking you,
believe. Go on,
why am
go
I
on.
asking you the question is because you've got to have a belief because you what's happening is like me. I practice Christianity, right?
Yep,
As you know, right?
yep.
So I I try to live a life that is right, but I don't. Sometimes I make mistakes along the way, and we all do.
Of course.
Now, with Reiki, right, it's a part of it comes from Japanese times. And also it's like, just healing and all like that. And to believe in healing, you must have a faith of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, I firstly, whilst I'm no astrophysicist, I fail to believe that the Earth is unique. Out of the what I think somebody said to me, there's 22 billion stars or something ridiculous like that. How can we be the only living intelligent life form? I don't know what that life form is, but I think there must be some. Um, but spiritually, I think there is a real injustice, and maybe it is an injustice. We'll find out one day. Um, that we have this spirit inside us. I believe in the spirit. I talk about spirit and soul. Um, that where does that go? Where does that go? In terms of religion, let's drill down on what belief means. In terms of religion, uh, I know people of many faiths. I've worked with the Muslim community on the largest Muslim festival in Europe. And when I have been as a supplier to site, they have been the most accommodating, social people you could ever meet. Um, I've worked a lot on Christian festivals. Again, amazing people. Um, so there has to be something. There has to be something in it. I think I'd like to believe that I cherry pick some of the best bits. I've mentioned Buddhism. I've read a
Mm.
lot about Buddhism. I align myself to Buddhism, but I also align myself to Hinduism, and I also align myself to Christianity. I don't have to be practicing, but I understand those beliefs and go, do you know what? There's a lot. There's a lot in that I find believable, plausible, comforting, and amazing. Um, it's it's an interesting subject to talk about because when we talk from a counselling perspective, belief and religion is not something that's tangible. You can't see it,
Mm.
you can't touch it, you can't taste it. Yet people have a belief.
Yeah, but the trouble is you can't see the wind, you only can feel it.
Totally, totally,
It's true, isn't
yeah,
it?
totally.
So yeah, so it's but I just kind of like some people come up to me and say, "Oh, why do you believe in God? You're weird," and all that. But I don't. It's a part of my faith. It's what I believe in.
I would never disregard anybody who has any faith, and as left field as some faiths are, because there are some fringe faiths that people align themselves to. If that's their belief, who am I to disregard
Of course, and
that?
that's it.
Okay.
And that's it. Yeah.
In the same sense that people say to me, what's this Reiki nonsense all about? I
Mm.
say, okay, look, come for 20 minutes. Come and try it. If you like it, you know, get a book and learn about it yourself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
mm.
isn't that what the Bible is about, or the Quran, or any of the other books that go with those beliefs? Get the book, read it, and see what you like. And if you like it, brilliant. If you don't,
But
disregard
that's
it and
it.
move on to the next one. But
But
don't be dismissive of people's religion.
of course. It's like the other day. I don't know if you watched it, but I had a guest on who was he was a spiritualist vicar, minister, right? Now, for a while, he didn't want to come on, right? Because, and I found out the truth. He said, why I didn't want to come on is because I thought I was going to get a strong interview with you because of your beliefs about spiritualists and things like that, you know? And I said, look, I am not no way in a position to judge anybody. You
Not at
know,
all.
we can ask questions, but I cannot judge you. And that was it. And then he came on and we dealt with it and we sorted it all out. And everything's all right now. But see, the trouble is, we cannot go around kind of judging people for what they're doing. If people want to do Reiki, that's fine. If people want to be a Buddha, that's fine. If people want to be a Jew, let it be.
You mentioned a word in there that is the backbone, or one of the backbones of a therapeutic relationship, and that's judgment. And one thing that probably people struggle to understand is that I could have a career criminal sat in my therapy room. I can't judge them on what they have done. Uh, Now, obviously, if there is a danger to life, then I have an ethical judgment to do something about that. But then,
Hmm.
we talk about that. But let's say I had a uh, a client who was addicted to a Class A drug, severely breaking the law, severely breaking the law.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cool.
But I
Yeah.
can't make a judgment uh, in just the same respect as I can't make a judgment on somebody's religion.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle choice. Now, if that person within the therapeutic environment decides that they no longer need those drugs, then brilliant. Um, it's for me to ask, well, maybe what are the circumstances behind your need for drugs? Um, but I'm not there to judge. Um, it's we it's very easy. It's very easy to judge. We judge every day as human beings,
Of
and
course we
it's
do.
it's a
Yeah.
skill that takes a lot of learning, because when we drive down the road, we look at somebody and go, that person's fat, that person's thin, that person's tall, that person's
Yeah. Yeah.
short, that person's black, that person's white. Whatever. It doesn't, you know, all the time, our brain is making a judgment on a situation. Um, and as a counselor, as a therapist, I have to be very careful to undo some of those judgments. And of course, I'm human. Of course, there are things that are going on in my head when I talk to somebody, and I almost have to tell myself off in my head to say, you're here not to judge. But we all
We
do it.
we all do, don't we? Have you
We all do it.
have you ever kind of like sat? A long time ago, I used to sit on a bench in town, where I used to live in Plymouth, and I used to sit there and I used to eat my sandwich for dinner or whatever it was, and all these people were going by, and I was going, look at him that, look at him that, look at her that, look at him that. And it was like I was like, judging people, you know what I mean? Thinking, oh, look, he's posh, he's thingy, watch him, look at him
What's his
that.
backstory?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I was doing, see?
I um, I love people watching. I love it. I used to live in London, and I lived close to Canary Wharf. And 20 years ago, Canary Wharf wasn't as busy as it was or as it is now.
Mm,
And I used to go and sit in a cafe and just watch people go by. Or I'd go and sit at one of the big rail terminus and just watch people. And you'd think, where are they going? What's their story?
mm.
Oh, they've got a nice suit. Are
Yeah,
they
that's it,
rich? Are they rich, or have they put it on a credit card? It's where have
yeah.
they come from? And
Yeah.
it's almost, I mean, goodness, isn't that judging? Isn't
Mm,
that judging? Isn't that what that
yeah,
is? But
yeah.
certainly when I lived on my own, it I was going to say it gave me some purpose really on a Saturday afternoon to people watch. Yeah, go and sit in one of
Mm,
the green spaces and watch people. Um, it's really interesting
mm.
because probably 9 times out of 10 you get the narrative of what or who somebody is completely wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Good. That's
Pleasure,
good to end on, really. Thank you for your time tonight.
always.
That was interesting. Thank you very much. If you want to know about Duncan, don't forget to contact Listening Therapies, Active Listening Therapies, and all this information I've been putting on during this show and everything. Don't forget, try Reiki if you want to try Reiki. I've never tried it myself, but Duncan says it's really good, so I'm going to put my faith in Duncan and say, go and try Reiki. And there's a lot of therapies out there, but guys, make sure you pick the right one and what's best for you. In the meantime, don't forget we got two shows tomorrow, um, and then on Sunday too. And we'll be back next week, hopefully. So we'll see you then. Bye bye. No, thanks, Dunk. Thank you.
No worries at all.